what would you suggest to someone who like wants the stability, right? Like as a music teacher does, but also wants to be a freelance composer for life. What should I do, bro?
Well, Thomas, I'm so glad you're
Yeah.
here. So welcome to Become a Game Composer, the show. um, so just to kind of kick off our conversation, I'd love to know, what has been your favorite piece of content that I've created in the past? So something you either read or watched. What comes to mind?
I think my favorite piece of content from you was your book. When I read your
Okay.
book, that was my favorite piece of content. Because it had an in-depth view of not only what you were doing, but who you were, and that you were doing it for your family. And that resonated with me because I'm married to, a Chinese immigrant who's a med student. And so it gets to a point of where you're like, just in case anything goes sideways, I need to support my family, sort of deal.
Yeah. So have you noticed any changes
Yeah.
in your career, specifically with game music, or as you mentioned, with family, just as a result of reading that?
Yeah. She actually gained more confidence in me when she saw me working.
Nice.
Because she'd be like, "You're not working. What are you doing? What's your problem?" And of course, if you're an artist, some of us, not all of us, a lot of people like to say it's all of us, but people like me look way too inward, do way too much meditation that's not necessary. You should meditate only for a little bit on things, and then you do it. Don't dwell on things for too long. So when she saw me actually putting in the work, it made her more confident in me. You know what I mean? And
Sure.
also, she told me I have to go be a music teacher. So I went and I did that. So, you know what I mean? Because you gotta make compromises.
Yeah,
Everyone's different.
totally.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you're here. How can I help you today?
Let's see here. I remember you talking about, micro niching. Like, this is one of your recent YouTube videos that came out where you were like, "I'm not sure what I'm doing, but I think I am sure what I'm doing. I'm gonna do it." And that's basically what it was, where you're focusing on one aspect, and that is video games, right? And just channeling all your energy into that. So, what I wanted to know is, now that video games are your main focus, could you explain how it's important to have that main focus to composers that feel, "Well, I need the money right now," you know?
Sure. Now, just to clarify, are you
Okay.
talking about like why choose the game industry versus trying to do film and TV and podcasting? Is that what you mean?
I guess what I mean is, like, why choose a main focus when you have other sources of income that could be readily available to you if you work hard at it? Why is it important to micro niche?
Okay. That's a great question. And that's something that I had to wrestle down for multiple years. The way I like to think of it is, if you tried to take a shotgun approach at the music industry as a whole, and you try to teach over here, you try to write over here, you try to create music packs and libraries, and you're trying to write for podcasts and films and TV, right? It could easily turn into 20, 30 different jobs. But the challenge with this is, if you're not focusing on one primary goal, which is what micro niching is all about, is really getting down to the one goal that is your biggest passion and simultaneously what you love to do the most. I think it's important to have both, the crossroads there. Once you find that one thing and you can focus hardcore on that, just found that that's where success lives. That's where opportunities live. That's where you inspire the most people. Because in business, not to overly simplify this, but sometimes we just got to get back to the basics. Truly, at the core of business, not even just music, but business is all about serving people. You can serve someone well, they pay you eventually in some capacity. It could come in so many different forms, but to really make it personal, as a game composer, we're trying to serve game developers. And if you're also trying to serve film directors and you're also trying to create production library music, your time and your effort, your mind, your energy, everything is divided. And what's going to happen is, at best, if you're like working at 100% optimum capacity, like you were just doing for your 21 days of VGM, right? You just proved the whole point. Day 22, you're exhausted because that was
Yeah,
not sustainable, right? No one works at
right.
100% efficiency or capacity. It's just not how we are as humans. We have to have rest and breaks. We have to slow down. There's always emergencies and fires to put out. It's just not real life. You might be able to work at 80%. I don't know what the math on that is, but the point is if you're trying to pursue too many things at once, the quality is going to suffer. And I think we all have to make the decision, are we going to be quality or quantity? And I don't even think that there's a wrong answer. I think you have to pick one or you're not going to reach that level of success that you want. And there are many examples I could give of people who are quantity. The first that comes to mind is Gary Vaynerchuk. I think he's the ideal person to study, read his material, watch his videos. He's a serial entrepreneur. So he's just someone who is constantly talking about marketing and being everywhere. So quantity for him means be on every social platform, post 100 pieces of content per day. That's his strategy. And that's why he dominates, makes tens of millions. And it's a different way of life. The complete opposite is to do something like Roberto Blake or Pat Flynn. These are really, really big YouTube podcasters who also serial entrepreneurs, equally successful, but they swing the other direction of quality. And they believe in do as little as possible, but make sure everything you do is the best that you can do. And that's where I, as an artist, naturally resonate with. And again, there is no wrong path, but I think ultimately you have to pick one or else you're going to constantly be warring between the two. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think it gave an answer even beyond what I asked. It helped you, like, not only was it about micro niching, but it helped you focus on why are you doing it? Are you doing it for, are you which method are you going to do it for? So why are you doing it, first of all, and then are you going to do it for quantity reasons or quality reasons? What resonates with you? Basically, be authentically yourself, but also remember to focus your energy because you'll burn out, just like you said.
So if you're going to go to the quantity route, then you have more of a tendency to burn yourself out because you're having
Mm,
to output considerably more often, even though it's not necessarily quality content, it's really documenting your life. If you've noticed that there are people who are madly successful, wildly successful on YouTube because they literally just leave their phone on all day and they're constantly live. They're in this
right.
documenting. And that's Gary Vaynerchuk. That's his big phrase is document, don't create. But I'm very much on the opposite side of create, don't document. And I don't think there's a right or wrong, but you got to pick one and stick with it. So when it pertains to music, yes, you can do everything. There are successful models everywhere, but that is not the lifestyle I want. 10 years from now, I want to still have the flexibility to serve my family and spend time with them and do the things I want to do. And I think it boils down to when I think about 10 years from now, I want to be working less, not more. I want to be building systems, infrastructures. I want to be hiring more people and building a team that I'm kind of hands off. I want to be more of an owner manager than anything. I think of
Mm,
Hans Zimmer. I know he's not necessarily a game composer, but I think of the Hans Zimmer school of thought of let's hire a really big team, but everything's filtered through his creative process. He still writes the notes,
mm.
but he has an
Yeah.
orchestrator, a lot of orchestrators and a lot of producers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I could give a lot of examples of successful game composers too that do have teams. I think Bear McCreary is one of the best examples as both a game composer and a TV composer who he does both, but no one starts doing multiple successfully. And honestly, a big part of this show, stick around as a subscriber, and I'm gonna have lots of chats with some bigger name composers who have made this switch. People like Gary Scheinman, for example, who started off in TV film forever, had like 30 or so years of industry experience, and then he wanted to dip his toe into video games and then completely switched into 100% video games. People like Jason Graves, who are very similar stories. So there's a lot of switching around in the industry, and it's just an observation that people at the top level are known for one thing. And if that's the success, you're let's be honest, successful people leave clues, right? There are patterns to success. And while you can't duplicate someone else's story, like you could do everything that I suggest and not get my story because it's not, I don't know your exact situation, but the principles outlast.
All right, so there are so many, great sources for young composers, right? And we're starting to know more about on the internet, like BGM Academy, what you have got going on. Tom Salta's got an Atlas Club. The list probably goes on and on beyond what I know, right? But there's something that I wonder about, like when I finally make my outreach, right, and I go after independent game devs or whatever, they don't know people who are in the bigger business, right? So I have one contact in film, one contact in video games, right? And I want to focus on video games. So I'll make that contact. Hopefully it works out, but it's always more of a we'll see how it plays out, man, almost like hippie style. And,
Yeah.
no one likes that, right? So my question to you is I don't know if there's a way you could properly answer this. I don't know it's if it's polite to ask this question, because it's like something where like, well, tell me your secrets. But it's like, is there a way to bridge the gap between indie composer and composing for Halo? That's a big difference. But is there like a way to somewhere meet in the middle or get there somehow?
There's a lot of questions there, so I'll try to pick that apart.
Yeah, sorry.
And for what it's worth, to me, there are no off limit questions, right? Just
Okay.
we're here to be candid. Let's get to the heart of the question. Are you asking how do you get higher profile gigs? Ultimately,
Yeah, I guess the very blunt question would be, how do I get higher profile gigs, Steven? I think that would be the
okay.
okay.
So, what have you tried so far, or what have you considered trying to get higher profile gigs?
Well, this was all like briefly before the pandemic. So I did start this kind of soon. But what I did was I went to conventions or I went to like indie game events and you know, I tried to make it fun. Like I made a business card, but it was out of like 80s like cassette. It was like an
Hmm.
80s cassette that said rad tunes, and stuff like that. And I would make sure I wasn't like approaching them as if it was like hire me. It was more like let me hear about you first. Why did you create the game? By the way, I'm a video game composer. So I tried to do that and reach out, and that worked with one person only because he went, oh, you went to Stony Brook University too? And we made that connection. So I'm realizing I feel like the connections are more like what you relate with the other person rather than actually the video game. So I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what to take from it.
Okay,
Mm,
now we're getting somewhere.
okay.
So
Mm,
here's what I feel like you did right. I hate to use the word networking. It's very clinical, businessy sounding, but in essence, you met someone, and because you had something in common, you connected. And I guarantee that
right.
if that person was in a position in that moment to hire you, they would have over every other composer they know. Not that I don't know if they know many, most indie devs don't. That's in the same way that composers don't tend to know a lot of devs, right? We tend to hang out with like minded people. The devs are with devs.
Mm,
So I think that was the right piece to the puzzle. But what I feel like is missing is nowhere in that connection did I sense that you gave value for free that was beyond the
right.
conversation. So here I have a very strong opinion about business cards. So I've seen business cards used effectively and I've seen it just ruin relationships.
Okay.
Generally, there is a stigma against business cards that when you get one, you feel like you just got an ad in the mail, essentially. Like it's just spam, it's junk. It
Yeah.
like you that's the first thing you want to do is throw in the trash. It just naturally has
Right.
this feeling of, ooh, someone wants something from me. Like I thought we were friends. Like I thought we were having a conversation. So I mean, think about it. How often do you
Right.
hang out with your friends let's say pre-COVID, how often did you like show up? Hey, what's up, guys? Here, hire me. Like, no, it's like
Yeah,
you talk and you enjoy activities together. Like, it's about friendship first and foremost. So I think networking has just gotten such a bad rap because it has traditionally felt very icky and slimy and businessy, and that's not how it's supposed to be. So I love that you've taken the first step of being physically in a place where game developers are. I think that's a huge step. I don't think that's essential because you can imitate that online. However, if you have the opportunity to do physical things, by all means do that. So I would much rather you, instead of giving a business card, which is essentially asking for work, I would much rather you, if you're going to give something for free, like a flash drive that has 6 free tracks on it. And
sorry
then
that I'm
you,
writing this down.
okay, go for it. And then you follow up with them 12 hours later.
Yeah.
Hey man, did you check out the
Okay.
6 tracks I gave you? Have you had a chance to throw those into your game to see if that's a good fit? At least then you have added value. And
Yeah.
I will quote something from Gary Vaynerchuk. I think he's a brilliant marketer. We talked about him earlier, but he has a very famous book called Jab, 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 Right Hook. It's a boxing analogy where he talks about give, 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 then ask. There's a psychological need as humans that we will never say yes to something until we feel like we have received value first. The same psychological journey we have to go through to buy something, because we buy something when we feel like there's a need and we need it now. We feel like there is more value in exchange for our money. So in the same way, you can't just ask for something. Like, I'll be honest, we're in a new house right now. We've been here for about a year and a half, and this is a soliciting neighborhood, and because it's a new property. And one of the most annoying things in the world is when someone comes to the door, hey, I'm selling this, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, are you kidding me? It just instantly makes me want to say no. I don't care how great it is, how cheap it is, how much it's going to change my life. I don't want anything to do with it because you interrupted my day, and I have to stand here and listen to you give a speech, right? In the same way with a phone, like my phone's on Do Not Disturb for most of the day. I don't want phone calls. In this day and age, phone calls ruin our lives. It's like we get so angry if someone tries to call us. And worse, if you answer it and it's a robot or if it's spam, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like you just wasted 15 seconds of my day, right? So there is just this hidden angst to sales that people just hate. So anytime you can bypass that by giving away something for free, man, that is the door into literally anything you want in life. This doesn't even have to do with music, but I mean, even right now, I mean, in this very show, I've reached out to a bunch of A-list composers, and 99% of them say yes. Why? Because I give them something free in advance, or we already have a connection, or I already have friends of their friends, and we make friendship, community relationships. Like there really is nothing that's off limits that you want in life. You just have to know how to get it. And that all boils down to who do you know that knows the person that you want to talk to, or what value can you bring that no one else is bringing? And I know this is a bit of a tangent, but I hope this is helpful. That this makes me think of assistants, like composer internships and assistants. I am someone who hires composers to work with me, usually on a work for hire basis, usually on a contract basis. When I have a project that's too big for me to handle on my own, I'll get other composers. And the people I hire are the people I have personal relationships every time. And here I am, I'm on a platform. I recognize that, I have a pretty successful show here, and I'm not going to just do a casting call. I'm not going to ask tens of thousands of people, hey, who thinks that they're going to be the right person for this job? Send your resume here. No, I'm going to call one of the 5 people in my phone right here that I can think of that I've had positive chats with, that I've seen their work already. I've talked with them already, or like, you get what I'm going with here, that is how business works. That is what networking actually is. It's who do you think of as soon as you want to hire somebody? Because if you flip the script into the mind of a game developer, they want to hire the person that they're friends with, not so much the person who could do the job great. Because that's just kind of a natural, if you're a professional at what you do, every professional game composer is good at writing game music. Duh. But this is where the whole
Right.
micro niche, back to your first question, this is where micro niching comes into play. Because if you are known
Mm.
as one thing and you do it really great,
Yeah.
I'm known as 2D adventure game music composer. So if I meet someone at a conference and they're making a platformer, a 2D platformer, the second I even talk to them, hey, I'm Stephen Malin, I'm a 2D adventure game music composer. No way, I am making a platformer right now. Hey, here's my card.
Yeah.
There's six free tracks on here. You can use them free of charge
Mm.
commercially in your game. If you'd be interested in hiring me, don't even say hire, but if you're interested in me writing a free custom track just to test it out in your game, I'd love to talk more.
Do you use like when you give away the free? Because there are people who are like me, right? That I've been underhanded, and of course, I would never name anything that happens, right? But you get taken advantage of, and that's the reason why that I don't give things for free. So when I give it for free, should I put a watermark in it, or should I just hopefully just let it happen if it happens? Because I'm nowhere yet, anyways. Like, how would you deal with that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I don't know how to deal with that sort of thing.
So
Okay.
one of my core beliefs
Sorry, go
and
ahead.
one of the beliefs of
Mhm,
become a game composer, one of the steps is
mhm.
give your best music for free. And so I could
Okay.
talk for an hour about that subject, but the principle is when you give your best for free up front, they will always pay
Mm,
for it again later. In the exact
okay.
same way that a free YouTube video or a free SoundCloud track is your best first, if it really resonates with someone, they will come back to buy it the second time, even if it's literally the exact same information. This is what courses are based on, right? And I could go in a whole
Mm, right.
diatribe about that, but essentially, your information or your music, if you give your best away for free, don't watermark it. Don't give your second best. Don't give your rejected tracks. Give your best. It doesn't mean you have to give away a lot. You can give away one track or 5 1-minute loops or something, right? But give away your
Mm,
best because while I don't like to make drug references, the exactly like a drug dealer wants to give a
yeah.
hint, a taste of the good stuff, of the best that they have, gets them hooked. What do you think they're
Okay.
going to come back for when money is no object, right? It's the same concept.
Right.
Don't cheapen yourself because we live in a society and culture where you get about 5 seconds of someone's attention and that's it. And they make all kinds of instant
Mm,
judgments about you, good or bad. And within about 5 seconds, they're gonna know if they want more from you. So if that first 5 seconds blows their mind, whoa, this sounds amazing. That's why if you do give away free
right.
tracks, make sure the first track is your best track. The first 5 seconds are just whoa. And
Mm,
one of my personal mantras is whenever I write music for any project for a game, I make sure that the first 5 seconds are instantly identifiable as that story or that game. So when I write for Monster Sanctuary,
right.
every single Monster Sanctuary track in the whole album, the first 5 seconds, that's Steven, that's Monster Sanctuary. And that's such a
Yep.
subconscious thing, but it's based on the instruments I use and it's based on my chord structures and the wow factors. So if my track doesn't do that within 5 seconds, I haven't done it right. I need to change it. That's kind of my thermometer, and I think that if you kind of live by that, the 5 second rule, you will always catch people's attention and have more to offer, and it turns into sales over time.
It's like foot in the door method, and I noticed that with your compositions, that they start off very strong with like the RPG ones. So I'm going to college to get my certificate, right? To become a music teacher. That's not only like music lessons, but music teacher, right? So once I become a music teacher, okay, I want to still do composition, and composition is my main passion. I enjoy teaching people, right? But I never know if I'm gonna really make the switch completely over to composer, and I might even want to do that. But I mean, what would you suggest to someone who like wants the stability, right? Like as a music teacher does, but also wants to be a freelance composer for life. What should I do, bro?
Mhm. I think there's nothing wrong with that,
Okay.
and I think that it's important to
Yeah.
know what you want out of life, but you also have to
Mhm.
know that there is always there's pros and cons to every decision, and to choose
Mhm.
two while similar, to choose two different career paths
Mhm.
simultaneously, you
Mhm.
will always hit a
Yeah.
ceiling at some point. Now, perhaps that is
Right.
something that serves your family extremely well, and that's the security that you desire. And that if that
Yep.
makes the family happy, then that's probably what you need to do. Um, Now, I teach that there is a process from transitioning from part time to full time music composer,
Mm.
and I've found
Right.
that it's usually a 3 to 5 year period where you transition. It's not hey, I'm here, I'm a full time composer now. It's not realistic. You have to have the funds to make that switch, but that transition happens over multiple years because anytime that you can get your foot in the door of the music industry, period, whether that's teaching or performing, recording, royalties, whatever.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things you can do. Um, but to gradually make the switch. And I don't think you have to make that decision right now. Um, but when I
Right. Of course
teach
not.
step one of the 10 steps to become a game composer, step one is you must choose to be exclusively a game composer. I'm referring to if you want that career to be as successful as possible, then it must be the only thing you do just by nature. It doesn't
That's what
mean
I was
though,
wondering.
it
Yep.
doesn't mean though that you have to start there. It just means if you're going to go
Mm.
through the 10 steps, get to that place first. So for you, in your situation, it may be that you want to teach for 3 to 5 years while growing your composition business, while working on the skill sets, while working on the technology and the music theory and all the things that just the skills that you're going to need once you try to build a business. Because I wouldn't recommend anyone starts a business if they're not skilled at what they do yet, right? You have to work
Right.
on that, and it does take time. And even in my
Mhm.
journey, I didn't just start off as a full time composer. I started off as a music teacher as well. I started off teaching piano lessons, violin lessons, and composition lessons. I did all three at the same time. I had 80 students per week. And I was working 60-hour weeks.
Oh.
Yeah, and I was working
Okay.
6 days a
Yeah.
week,
Yeah.
which for me is my absolute max, but I was working all day. Um, and what I ended up
Mhm.
doing was I would teach in the afternoon evenings. I would start teaching at 1 to about 9 at night, and then I would
Mhm.
write music from about 8 to 12. So I had about think about that. I had 4 hours a day, Monday through Saturday or so. Um, so I was still
You got
writing for
me
about
beat. I
I
had
was
3
still
jobs, but that's still more.
I was still writing for about 20 to
Yeah.
25 hours of
Wow.
writing time
Yeah.
each week, and then on the other side, I was teaching for who knows how long that is, 8 hours times 6, so yeah, about 50 hours, whoo, um, of teaching, and yeah, I was burnt out all the time, but that was a grinding season for me, and I did that for 3 years, but I
Yeah.
didn't have that many students for 3 years. I decided actually, at the very beginning, I told my boss, that had handled the lessons, I told him, "Hey, I'm going to be a full-time composer. I don't know when, but that's what I'm working towards. Right now, it's about half of my hours, but as we get more students, let me know how you want this transition process to happen." So basically, I paid respect, and then he said, "Hey, that's awesome. Just let me know about 1 month in advance of when you want to drop a day." And so every, I don't know, 3 to 6, probably about every 6 months over the course of 3 years, I dropped a day. So I went from 6 days to 5 to 4 to 3 to 2, and at that point, diminishing returns, right? It
Yeah.
didn't make any sense to even drive to do any of that. So that's when I made that switch. Um, and that by that point, I already had a full-time income from composing after about 3 years
Yeah.
of doing that, and that's how it happened. And it wasn't an instant success. It was something that let's rewind even more. Like I started writing music when I was 11 years old. Was I good? No, but it took me about I don't know, I got married when I was 24. So that's when I started teaching. So I don't know, 15 years ish, 13 years of just working on the craft, right? That's like going from zero
Yeah.
to skilled enough to make money at it, like good money at it. And it took about 12, 13 years. And then once I had that skill set, then I could embark on
Mm.
step one, so to speak, of the 10 steps. So don't feel like you have to be there right now. Because you got to, I hope that your top priority is your family over your career. And I think that's fundamentally
Yeah.
where I stand.
Mm.
And I hope anyone that's a part of Become a Game Composer resonates with that is family first, literally the name of the book, right? Family first composer. And then we can worry about the career.
Oh,
Because
yeah. I mean,
your
absolutely. Mm.
your goals have to align. Because if all you want to do is be a successful composer and you don't care about family and values and morals, whatever, I can't help you, right? Because we don't have the same framework. And so that's where all this is based around is making a slow but steady transition and
Mhm.
even to be a little bit more personal, something that I do is we set aside savings every month and like it's a slow journey. It's not let's get rich quick. It's let's get rich over time, doing good,
Right.
like being wise with finances and being wise with these transitions. So that's my encouragement to you is if that teaching job is something that will enrich your life and if here's another way of thinking about it. If that job will help you get to the goal faster, because let's be honest, you can't get to your goal at all if you're starving and you can't pay your bills, can't pay your rent, whatever.
Right.
How are you going to work on your music? You can't. But my hope for you is
And you
over
wanna
time,
yeah.
your hours will
Yep.
lessen.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I totally am family first. That's why I'm doing the music teaching and I'm going through with the certificate. Because you got to support you. And why would you want your wife and your family to go through what you're going through? They don't really deserve that. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
You got to think about them. They are you. You are basically one flesh. You're one person. And everyone's equal, in the relationship. So it's just something that I won't lie. For anyone, that's a hard pill to swallow because you have to be selfless. So that's good. It's good to be selfless because it'll actually make you healthier, happier. It'll just make your life better to be more selfless. So I think that your route is a good route to go. So I would say, yeah, start off with the music teaching and only back off like, when things are certain, do you know what I mean? Or when things are less dangerous. Like, you don't want to just dive into something like this for sure.
Yeah, I think with any entrepreneurial endeavor, there's always risk, always.
Mhm.
In
Right.
the same way that your job is not secure, it's a false sense of security. Hello, COVID, right?
Mm.
If I was still a music teacher at a
Yeah.
store with 80 students,
Mhm.
100% of them I couldn't meet with anymore, unless I did some kind of online
Mhm.
lessons or something. But even
Right.
that, which at the time was very secure, it was a monthly paycheck kind of deal. That's not my life anymore. And it's just interesting how what we perceive as secure is really not. It's more secure though. I do believe that there you can mitigate risk, and part of being
Yeah.
wise with finances and supporting your family and building a business is to mitigate risk, is to lessen the amount of risk wherever possible. But there will
Mm.
always be some risk. But I think you're totally right that if perhaps the route for you is to build up some savings from music teaching while you're building the music business, and then
Mm.
over time, you make that transition. And all of a sudden, what was once a 50-50 split of your time and energy becomes 60-40, 70-30,
Yeah.
80-20. And I believe that the 80-20 principle would teach us that that's when you make the switch because that is the point at which of diminishing returns mathematically. That's the point at which your efforts as a teacher, if you're only spending 20% of your effort, time, and energy, it will not give you the payment that is worth the time. Whereas you could allocate that 20% into the game composition, and that could dramatically increase that income. So I believe eighty
Mm.
twenty is really the point at which you should make that switch. But for most people, it is that 3 to 5 year range.
I'm gonna try to figure out a way to, help you out since you helped me out. I'll figure it out one day.
Hey, you know what that's called right there? And I would never ask for that, but That is literally that's the law of reciprocity, reciprocity, whatever it's called, but it's
I got you, I
reciprocal,
got you.
right? Um,
Yeah,
even though
reciprocation.
my heart is
Yep,
to help you and to help anyone listening, that's I'm not asking
yeah.
anything of you, but by law, this is like a law of
Mm,
nature. By law, when someone helps you out, you instantly,
yep,
at least for the present or the near future, it's almost as if you are looking for opportunities to help that person. And this is how the world of business works. And so
mm,
to kind of sum it all up here, I think is a great point to end on. When you give something for free, as I have given something for free today, it it almost creates this sense of attraction that you want to repay the favor. So imagine the feeling you have right now. That's what you want your game developers to feel. You want them to be like, "Oh my gosh,
right,
he just gave this really valuable thing to me. How do I pay him?
yep,
Like, how do we get to work together?" And like
mm,
that's how it happens. And it can happen at a
right,
conference. It can happen through an email. It can happen just from putting out YouTube videos and SoundCloud tracks. You attract the right
yeah,
people because you've micro niched, because you have set a brand for yourself. And this whole thing we talk about, the 10 steps of the sales funnel, you're selling to them. And my favorite part of this whole process is once you have the 10 steps set up, it's automatic. All of this, all the good vibes happen automatically because you've made something in advance. You've made a YouTube video, a SoundCloud track, but now hundreds and thousands of people get to experience it while you're sleeping. And it's like going to the conference, which by the way costs a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of opportunity cost. You could be working, doing something else, but imagine that little
right.
miniature, those connections you get to make at a conference. Imagine that happening all the time. That's the power
That would be amazing.
of attracting through content marketing, basically. So I hope that this was valuable for you and that you can take some of this and chew on it. And as always, you know where to find me. And I hope that this
Okay.
just gives you some stuff to think about.
Absolutely. It was very real, and that's what I appreciate the most is how genuine and, like, off the cuff and real it was. I felt, I was in the present the whole time. You know what I mean? So thank you so much for truly actually helping me.
Well, Thomas, I appreciate you. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you later.